Hey Neppers, it's me, Wild Neptune. So, Season 1 of RTA is almost over, and I'm ready to give my units and my builds when I climb for this season up to Mythic. But before that, just a little while ago, announced is that we did get announcements for Blessings Galore, which is the 2x event, and also for Wishbinder, which is a summon event. So, just really quickly, the Wishbinder, last time, 100 summons, you get a box where you choose either Claus, Veronica, or Tsukimi. 200 was a gold lattice, and 300 was a random SSR with other rewards in between. We do not know if that's going to be the same for this time around, but do know it's coming back, so save those summons. The 2x event is, double drops for everything except for shells. So get to not playing the game until this weekend. Also announced was Dreamscape. So we do know that they changed the reward structure. I couldn't find the post for Dreamscape, but I do know that it is coming. There was an announcement somewhere. But yeah, anyway, back to PvP. Oh, here we are. I did it Mythic, right? Though, barely into Mythic, but I am guaranteed to keep it for this season as I am over a game above the threshold. 60.2% win rate, not the greatest win rate overall, but I think respectable. Not a ton of games played, but enough, I feel like, to give some opinions on the overall season and the format. And of course, I'll be showing the units that I use to climb up right now. Alright, so let's look at some of the units that I have built, starting with the first one, which is going to be the Doki. So I have played and do play every playstyle. Maybe not well, maybe not with the best builds or all the units, but I can play all playstyles. And I think the Doki build I have is a clear sign of that, because this is kind of a jack of all trades Doki, which is, not a bloodbath, so not the best in like a bruiser fight. Not super fast, like 314. Obviously, I would like to be like, I think 325 is where I want this to be. 330 would be amazing. Not on Bulwark, but the Strive is okay too, right? It's really like pick your poison, right? The Strive is worse against things like Freya, but is better against like Kazuyo, right? Especially with the Yalicorn. Dauntless here, some more defensive stuff for survivability, which I think is okay, right? Again, see here, I'm on full HP or defense, and this is just for, again, survivability. Like, say here, like diffs, I can definitely get more speed. I can get maybe like, like 6 speed here, like, maybe like a couple of 12s. That's already like 12 speed. Like, that already would put me at like the 325, ish range. If I just get like a tiny bit more speed, in like maybe a couple of maybe like these pieces are definitely much harder to replace, but I definitely feel like getting 325 on this setup is doable with a little grinding and stuff like that. So probably have to go into Doki a little bit, but also because this is the one too, right, that I really want to get a better piece for this piece right here. But it's like this because, again, because I play all three styles, and sometimes I didn't even know what I was gonna do until I got into the draft. I really had to have this Doki be like a very good like neutral type pick for me, just in case I felt like I had the first picker or just kind of slam her down in a matchup. Because let's face it, when you don't have like certain units built for certain strategies, you have to fill with some things that maybe like not the greatest. And the Doki, she's like just, a good solid unit for a lot of strategies, and I guess a lot of strategies. Next up, we have Massiah. And when I do cleave, Massiah is the big damage dealer that I like to draft because he's just the best at it. So I don't know, like nothing much to say here, just like damage overall, now my cleave was speed tuned for normal arena normally to use that Liliam, Massiah, Obol, Heinrich team. And so if I get those four, I know they're speed tuned perfectly. Otherwise, yeah, right? Now, you'll notice too, well, eventually, that my cleave is kind of for Pega because I'm lacking a lot of damage dealers to actually using the cleave. So sometimes I have to just write bruisers in it as like kind of a backup, right? Just in case my Massiah gets banned. Oh, by the way, before we get, and I'll try to say these, my Doki has 4-3-5 investment. So 4S1, 3S2, 5S3. My Massiah is 4-5-5. Now for Heinrich. So I believe my Heinrich is 4-1-5 investment, maybe 4-1-4. I don't remember which one it is. But yeah, just like a cleave setup, right? Not even that fast, only 315, which is actually pretty slow. In fact, I would like to have him like 330-ish. I think maybe like, I don't know, like my Kazuyo is faster than my Heinrich, which is very, very awkward. It's just like the way it is. And the reason that is because like a lot of times Heinrich is just banned, right? So sometimes Kazuyo is just the last pick I have that I pick in some situations, and I don't even have the Heinrich, and in that case it doesn't matter. But it has come up sometimes where I do have both of them, and the Kazuyo goes before the Heinrich. It's just very, very awkward that way. But yeah, typical setup, really kind of Pepega gear right here. I do have the insight though, which is very, very nice. If a player pre-bans Heinrich, they are 100% in it for a long game. So Tiamat, my Tiamat I believe is 4-1-5. I really wish I could check my lattice investment. I don't think I put the 5th lattice into the S1 yet, because by that time Plume had come out, and I'm kind of investing lattice into Plume now. So I actually didn't have Tiamat built until I hit Master 3, and I needed one more unit to help me get over the hump. Because for a long time, even though I played a lot of bruiser matchups, I didn't actually have a lot of bruisers built. I was kind of, again, stretching my resources very, very, very thin. And so, typical anti-cleave setup here. Lighthouse, Bloodbath, Bramble. Try to get fast speed. See the passive. Whoop, I keep doing that. See the passives here with Dauntless, Surge, Shadow Dash. Right? I feel like those are the best ones. Maybe odd damage is better. Not really sure. I think in the anti-cleave, I definitely like having the Dauntless more. But yeah, I think the Amber setup is better in the Bruiser matchup, but definitely, if you want anti-cleave, this is the way to go. Of course, she can't do it by herself. She needs more support, like a heal, and probably like damage reduction partner, like a Viper, something like that. But definitely a good investment overall. Then we get to Rahu. So Rahu, I would say, is my best unit. And this is the setup I have. This is the setup I've been using basically almost the entire season. Man, Rahu for me has been a beast. Definitely, a unit that I am very confident in. And one of the units where, unless I'm fighting like a Cleaver or a CC, the one that I'm most likely to ban protect for myself. And see who the gear here and everything. Also the shell, which is going to be on Pan, defense, and not even red hollow, just yellow hollow, scrub. So different arguments whether or not the crit damage or the extra defense is better, or maybe the crit rate. I definitely feel like crit damage is better now overall, the way that the meta has shifted. I kind of feel like with this is again like me talking from experience, where this just feels better, and I definitely think that more players have been swapping towards a little more damage, especially for me too, when I kind of have to draft maybe stuff like this to like sometimes I have to draft Rahu right in my cleave team, just because I don't know DPS is built, right? So the little extra damage, right, at the start, could be, valuable. So next we have Lily, and Lily is my fastest unit, not even that fast, only 350. She is 550, right? Well, 551, right? So max S1, max S2, nothing into S3, and yeah, just typical fast speed. right? You know, like not even on great overall modules. Like, you know, I also have like no red speeds, unfortunately for me. You know, so you know, all like rebels and red, so like not that bad, right? Definitely could be faster. You know, that's especially still on a white fang. Definitely would like to get onto a Jackal Guard or even a Codex or something like that. But you know, gotta do what you gotta do. So Ling, so typical ER Ling, right? You know, good speed overall for the build, strive, bloodbath, the cut on the red insight with the calm, and definitely like low HP, right? Definitely really scary. So if she doesn't cut against Cleave, I just lose, right? But against CC though, very strong sometimes, like half the time. ER just Pepega, right? Definitely one of the big things though is because there's only like 4 real healers in the game, Ling, Fuqiu, Sania, and Chiaki, that Wadia Ling is built for this, right? She's really bad in the bruising mirror. No, not unusable, but definitely the worst one. But I do think you have to have her on this build because CC has so few counters, and even Cleave sometimes will open up with CC and go into like a Cleave damage, and the Ling healing like off that like defense break or that vulnerability or whatever it is, and just getting that tiny bit of health right up for you can mean a lot, right? I guess the Cleave thing. It could be the difference between you dying and you actually having a chance to launch a counterattack. Next we have Liliam, and Liliam is a 5/5/5 character. This is the build I have. The only thing I'd say, I'm a little bit too slow. I would honestly, like, I have a lot of ERs, I don't know, right? It was hard for me to get max crit rate because I have a crit damage one right here, it's a crit chance one. And you know, again, I don't want to reroll this, right? Because it's a red crit damage. Eventually, I do want to try to get a couple of dupes of her to get that 8 crit chance. And that 8 crit chance will do a lot for me to get my speed up. Because you see here, right, you know, I'm really trying to fish for, like, as much, like, crit rate, like, you know, basically everywhere. As possible. That's really the whole thing. Like, I'd even be okay dropping some of the damage, but yeah, like, definitely having this, like, random like, 11 here, you know, isn't, like I have like, you know, ER 10 here, right? You know, like, these pieces could definitely be better. Now, this piece would have to have more crit chance, too, right, to be better. But maybe, like, maybe those ER rolls are speed instead. You know, I'm at a pretty good spot, right? But, you know, this is what I have. Definitely really good against CC. It used to be a very strong for me first pick, but because there's much more Cleave now, not as safe as the first pick. In fact, because I don't, you'll get to it in a little bit here, but most of the time I'm more confident first picking like a Doki or something like that, or even like a Rahu versus Liliam. But sometimes, depending on the pre-ban, I feel safe picking the Liliam first. It just really depends. Next we have Hoyan, and she is right now 115. Eventually I do want to get more lattice into her, but it's just kind of hard for me to not justify it, right, but really spread it around for her because of how, like, limited she is and how often she gets picked. Now, to be clear here, I built Hoyan as one, you know, I say for like anti-cleave, even though it's really more like anti-yelly because most cleave has Massiah and they almost always lock Massiah, so Hoyan can't be used. But when that doesn't happen, man, Hoyan is great. I think she has to be on Bulwark plus Harvest, really. I think is definitely her best setup to try to get those kills. See the shell here, you know, salt thing, overclocking, right? So having a bulwark on the count is the main thing. The other one doesn't matter, so the key and I don't even use. It just has 5th raid, and this is simply because I do not have a count that has Fury Edge. Otherwise, that would be better, right? So that's really the only reason why it's like that. So, again, a unit I built more because I just like her design more than anything else. This one here we don't use. She's she has gear on. We don't really pay attention to it. Really Pepega. Now we have Viper. So for a little bit, I had my Viper built on on a Golden Line build when I put forward a lot of Bruise and Mirrors. But since that is gone, also the Viper obviously is 555. He's an SR, so that doesn't really matter. But because it's much more cleave now, I switched him back to kind of like a more anti-cleave type setup where I have on this Gigabyte here, just because I don't really even know. Like this defensive stance, he can't even proc, right? So this would be better on another unit, but it's just kind of like what I have, and sometimes again you gotta use what you have. Right? So Strive, Bloodbath, and Ether Plague. I feel like because he's really only for anti-cleave, I don't really need that much effect actually on him. So this is typically enough. Also, sometimes too, you just draft him into a Liliam also because the attack and speed down can be really good here. But yeah, just defensive stats, right? Sometimes even with the speed, with the Strive and the Gigabyte, he'll push, and you can guarantee maybe getting an S3 before their big damage dealer goes off. So okay, so here is the Mizuki Mikoto. One of my favorite overall units design-wise, actually. You notice that she is my frame thingy for my PvP, whatever. So I know she doesn't work on Bramble, but this is just the only one of these I have. I really have tried to get Swift Raid, but or whatever it is, Swift Rush, but I just can't. Right, and not interested enough to even roll past not even defensive percentage, just flat defense, so bad, right? I actually didn't even notice it was a flat defense. It's right now, but yeah, definitely slower because again, no Swift Rush, right? But 100% crit, okay stats overall, again, this is not even that good, I don't think. But you know what? She does her job, right? For a long time, because I didn't have Tiamat build and only Holden, all I had was her and Holden for my bruisers, and for a little bit a Golden Line Viper. So, that's what I had, right? I had to make do. A lot of my booster matchups, I just had to again toss in the Liliam just to have another damage dealer just to have, right? Sometimes, right, when they pick other things, they pre-ban certain things, I had to pick Massiah as a last pick, right, just to have a threat to do something in certain matchups, right? Again, this is what happens when you try to build a lot of units that you like instead of focusing on certain ones. Anyway, moving on to the Kazuyo, and right here is 3. She's actually slower than I thought she was. Whatever. But yeah, we have the Kazuyo here now. She's on Bulwark, as it's one of those things where I feel like if you are slower when you CC, have them on Bulwark can be very beneficial. And for me, she's often a last pick when I picked her. She's on Dark Moon because that's Bulwark and the Gaze. Now the Dark Moon, it doesn't actually do anything for her. Yes, she'll land attack down for another turn, one character. But because this doesn't work for CC, this is just a bad shell. It just but this is what I used, right? So I am showing it. Sania. So Sania, very busted healer. Right here. So I do have her on 1 ER and 2 HP. For a long time, I actually had her on 3 HP, but I thought after some consideration, give it a 1 ER, I think is okay, right? I don't know, maybe 2 is better, but I definitely like having a little more survivability for the Bruise and Mirrors overall. Right here, Synergy, Shadow Dash, and a Surge, and here the passes on the shell. Again, she's an SR, so 555. look at the gear here. Okay, pretty good. I just say pretty good gear, I would say. Nothing special though. Obol. So here's the Obol, and here is the thing, right? This is a little bit slower than the Heinrich, of course, just so he goes after the strip. And yeah, basic Codex build. I do have the Gaze, which is pretty nice overall. I think though for most of usage for him, I'd rather have Insight, but there's Shadow Dash and everything like that on the Codex. And yeah, again, nothing crazy. Like this piece of gear, like +6 speed is like what am I doing with my life, right? Oh, this is actually +15 though, right? But yeah, +9, +10. Again, when I draft him, I almost always know or think that I'm gonna be faster than my opponent, and I draft him a lot less than I drafted Kazuyo, right? Like my cleave, I basically hope I just like outspeed and out damage, or can catch my opponent, like off guard. This is a Plume, and my Plume is on a Bloodbath build, which is kind of for Pekka. The Plume right now only has 1 lattice in the S3, and that's because that's all I had to lattice her. So the Jackal Guard, actually pretty good, like Inside, Shadow Dash. I actually wish this was Gaze for this setup here. This Inside is actually bad for this one. So eventually I do kind of want to swap this off to another one. I don't, but like the thing is that I rolled this Insight as I was rolling for a Gaze, and now it's like, well, I had to keep this because this combo was like just so rare. So it's probably more like just raise another shell eventually and change it out. But this is what I have, right? Didn't really get to play her too much, but typical here. This is on HP because I kind of feel like eventually, like for these setups and the matchups I use her in, I don't have to have her on max accuracy. Mio. So Mio, is gonna, also for Plume, eventually 555, right? Mio. So my Mio is 513, I believe, and maybe 515, but I'm pretty sure she's 513. No, sorry, 4. She's 413, I believe, and which is basically the minimum investment I think you have to have into her, and yeah, so. Like not even that fast, only 338 on Codex and stuff like that. A lot of the times I'll use her as like a speed contest. The Dawn is okay too. Sometimes too though, because I do have like some survivability, like flight HP though, but that's because you sacrifice some of the stuff for the speed and stuff like that, right? I can use her in like non like CC matchups, right? Sometimes I feel like if I can get away with it, I could draft a Mio to control my opponent just long enough to help me like overcome. Let's say I have like like a damage dealer like Massiah or like the Hold and stuff like that, and the Mio, and I kind of feel like the other team lacks sustain. I can like chain together like a couple of Mio S3s and some damage deal and stuff like that to gain enough advantage. By the time that they actually try to counterattack me, I already won the game, right? So it's kind of that like mixing and matching those strategies when you have like a roster built like this. So Fuqiu, another unit I think is kind of busted, and this is what I have right now. I think this is pretty typical on the Supernova. So healing done, HP and synergy. I try to have it like as slow as possible. I don't know, like really what's the best overall. Definitely having it faster is better against cleave, but because it's hard for me to dedicate every single unit to be anti-cleave, I definitely wanted to have one that was better in like slower matchups, and definitely having her slower is better in those. So her Moonlight Veil, proximal often, and she's in the state more. Bulwark is basically required for her. Also, my investment into her, I think is just 2 in the S3. That's all I have, right? So not even a lot of lattice into her. Now, obviously, more into her is better. She's a really, really good unit, but really, that's all she needs, right? She just needs those 2 in the S3, and, that's it. Another one here is going to be my Chiaki, and Chiaki is, I think, at first was an overlooked healer, but because healers are so, scarce in the game, and in those booster matchups, you really want to have, 2, right, on your team, just in case one of them gets banned, and if you have only one of them, then that one gets banned, and it can be kind of hard to break through, 2 healers and, a Tiamat, stuff like that, if you're also a bruiser player and you don't have your own sustain. So this is why your Chiaki became much more important. And yeah, so Bloodbath, not in a Strive. The Halloween isn't even that great on her. It just, again, it's what I had, right? Now, sometimes though, because she a lot of times will proactively use her S3 on the first turn because of her because of the origami doll, sometimes the Halloween will proc right away, and you get those cooldown reduction. So not as bad on her than on some other units that don't have a non-passive on the S2, but I'd rather have the Gigabyte or something like that. And that's really, believe it or not, all the units I have built and I've really used in PvP. Now let's look at some units that I do not have built. Okay, so Holden, don't have him built, at all. No lattice, nothing, unfortunately. Holden is my most pre-ban unit. Freya, no lattice. Now, one of these two now is, I think, after Plume, Freya might be the unit that I start building up next. Definitely thinking about it. Just because they combo really well together, and not just in Cleave, but even in slower matchups, the Freya, the combo is just goated right now. Mia, actually a unit I got fairly recently, one that I'm not sure how much I want to go into her, but something that I'm thinking about. This Rin is a work in progress. I have her built and everything, lattice and all that stuff. However, I do not have another lighthouse to give to her, and I need better speed, better gear for setup 2, for the anti-cleave. Beyontin, a character I like to have a push for my cleave. Veronica, a character I like to have for my anti-cleave. What else here? Another bruiser my what's her name? This is right here. Lilith, I like to have, right? Yelly, right? Don't have her built, right? Could use another damage dealer for my cleave team. That 100% definitely. And these other SR units, right? I don't have built RC, Yang, Marvel, right? And she just came out, so she's new, right? So yeah, so as you see here, I roster that doesn't really know what it wants to do, right? Sometimes I want to cleave, sometimes I want to play control, sometimes I want to play a bruiser, right? It's one of those things where I kind of built units that I thought were cool at first, right? So again, like I said, I built Liliam before she got buffed, right? So she was 5/5/5 for me even before she was buffed, right? Hoyan, right? I built just because, well, look at her, right? Now, I say that, right? But I also built, Rahu, Heinrich, right? Massiah, stuff like that too. So, yes, sometimes I do chase, meta and stuff like that. But, sometimes too, I just want to build what I want to build, right? And I feel for most players, that's what they should do. But I also think this shows that you don't need every single unit built in the game to be successful. Now, do I think that we should be able to build more units? Yes, I do. And I think there's even more counterplay for other units also. For me, Plume is so strong and so terrifying as a unit that since she came out, I have enjoyed the game less. I feel the game is less good right now that she's in it. And I think that's a problem. Now, if you're climbing right now, again, there's only about a week left in the season. So if you haven't started climbing and you want the platinum rank for the background, like the arena, whatever the stage, get to it, right? Because man, a lot of people are going to be trying to push in that final season, and some of them have played no RTA at all and are, better geared than I am and might have better rosters than I do. I'll be honest, if you're not like right now, maybe like probably level 100 and already have been playing for a while, it might be kind of difficult. I don't know, because like there's a lot of point inflation, so the win rate you have to get the platinum is actually pretty low, but you might have to invest a lot of time. And even if you have good gear and a good roster built, you have to have practice, right? It's like my knowledge of like the game and drafting and PvP grew like exponentially the more I played. And it didn't take me a lot of games, right? But I'm definitely a much better player now than I was, back then. Like, I definitely could not have climbed to Mythic, as I was, like, a few months ago compared to I am now, right? In the game at that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, comment, subscribe. Always appreciate it. Anyway, I'm Wild Neptune. It's been a good one. Till next time.